What would happen if a country of 97 million people were taught at a young age that the boogeyman was real? In the Philippines, this isn't far from the truth. It is estimated that up to 80% of the provincial population believes that such a being exists. It has been among them for centuries, but became truly horrifying after Spanish colonizers Christianized their indigenous beliefs. It comes in many manifestations and performs violent acts against anyone who crosses its path. Is this creature just a myth? Or are there some elements of truth to the stories of the Aswang?
Wonderful place to grow up. In the Philippines. Mindoro. Panay. Really fascinating. And this one? This is the Aswang. Good God.
This was my first introduction to the Aswang, the Rye Martin and Barry Polterman 1994 film in which an Aswang has taken up residence in rural Wisconsin. 6 years later, I made my first visit to the Philippines. Like many tourists, I spent time in the metropolitan area of Makati, did some shopping, traveled around on the local and abundant transportation like the tricycle and the jeepney, and relaxed on some of the most breathtaking beaches in the world. I visited only a few of the 7,107 islands and met just a handful of the 97 million people living there. The Philippines is 83% Catholic, and having been raised Catholic, I understood the strict moral and family values that most Filipinos displayed. What I didn't understand was their superstitions. I started watching any movie I could get my hands on relating to Philippine folklore, and was again introduced to the Aswang. This creature seemed able to do anything. It could transform into animals, fly, cast magic spells, heal itself, and really didn't seem to need a specific food source. Pregnant women, the sick, or children. It was a perfect subject for a film. I went back to the Philippines to film my interpretation of the folklore. I had a minimal cast, minimal crew, and minimal gear. In the end, I felt I had a pretty strong film, but was always troubled by the lack of consistent information regarding this creature. I realized when screening it that without a generalized understanding and acceptance of the Aswang, like many Filipinos have, the movie didn't make sense. So I flew back to the Philippines to answer this lingering question: what is an Aswang?
The basics is transformation, the eating of human flesh.
A young woman.
The tik-tik and the wak-wak, which are just simply birds that are associated to the Aswang.
Another one is the one with the tongue that comes out and it sucks out the fetus.
They like to eat babies and the entrails of humans.
The moon has something to do with it, I think.
The Aswang who walks and that who flies.
The one we have here is called manananggal. They cut themselves in half, they leave the lower half on the ground, the other half flies away.
Which artistically I figure must be really, really painful.
The Aswang in Shikrat, the Aswang of Peke, the manananggal.
If you see an extremely large dog,
in the older stories, horses.
If you see an oversized pig, it becomes an Aswang.
Sigbin, which is the were-dog that's half dog and half human.
Every person has his own perspective in all this.
There's no picture really of what it really is. Like, it can have different interpretations. An Aswang can be a man-eating creature to others, like a ghost or a spirit. Or to others, it's just
evil.
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 Evil. Evil.
There's no specific character for that.
I think I like the Aswang idea because it's so amorphous and ambiguous, and it's unknown.
This is going to be harder than I thought. I ended up with more questions than answers. Why are there so many different types of Aswang? Where generally in Filipino folklore, the descriptions of the creature is unanimous. Why are they predominantly women? Where did the word come from? How does the Manananggal fit into this? And most important to me was, why is the Visayan province of Capiz suspected as their home?
Ang aswang, pag naghaharana, ang dingding ng bahay, ang ginigitara
I was surprised during the making of this film at how much influence the Aswang has had in shaping Philippine society, and how intertwined it is with their history. So here are the basics that you need to know. It is believed the Philippines had inhabitants some 40,000 years ago, but the current residents came later, starting with the Ate, or Negrito, who some believe are among pygmy groups originating in Africa. About 2,500 years ago, the Malays came, although how they arrived is widely disputed. On March 16, 1521, Ferdinand Magellan arrived and was killed a month later by Lapu-Lapu in Mactan, Cebu. But it didn't stop the Spanish from returning in 1565, setting up permanent colonies and unifying the country under one political and religious code. The Spanish missionaries successfully converted most of the country to Christianity and controlled the island for most of 3 centuries, until Jose Rizal's book, Noli Me Tangere, also named The Social Cancer, was published in 1887. The book brought a national identity to Filipinos and sparked unrest and revolution among the lower class. He was executed on December 30th, 1896, for treason, sedition, and instigating revolution. The United States helped out as part of their Spanish-American War and assisted Filipinos in achieving freedom from Spanish rule. The problem was, they didn't leave. And so began the highly controversial American occupation. In 1942, the islands fell under Japanese control, forcing the Americans to temporarily leave. MacArthur said, "I shall return." Filipinos continued to fight the Japanese until MacArthur made good on his promise. On July 4, 1946, the Philippines gained its independence. After a 20-year hiccup under the rule of Ferdinand Marcos, the Philippines are working towards economic development and political stability. Now that's covered, let's get started.
In Luzon, the Tagalog say tao po. I always thought it meant, is there any people here? Are there any people? Tao is person. Any persons? Po is sign of respect. I found out that tao po means, hello, I'm a human. I'm not a monster.
You always have this feeling at the back of your mind that it's real because it's coming from somebody who's old enough to tell you what they have experienced in the past, right? So I just have this feeling that, I don't think he's going to tell me this because, he's just making stories. Because he's an old guy or an old lady, she must be telling the truth, right? So that's my interpretation before, when I was younger. But of course now, I respect all of that.
For somebody to come up and say that I've seen a UFO, and like 1/3 of the room will say, he's crazy. For somebody in the Philippines to say that I saw an Aswang,
That's one curious thing about the Philippines. Even though some people would laugh at the concept, a huge majority believes that there is an Aswang out there.
And they will even scoff at ghosts. I have friends who, ghost, tell me where it is, because the Galiaga Theater is supposed to be really, really haunted. They slept overnight to prove they don't believe in ghosts, but they all believe in the Aswang. There is an acceptance that this thing is real, this thing is around us, these things exist.
Aswang is a universal Filipino term that everyone, I'd say, would understand. So if someone is labeled an Aswang, no matter where you are or who you are, people's gonna avoid you. People are gonna look at you with suspicion.
Yes, there are people who have killed their children because they thought they were turning into monsters, and old ladies.
She looked like old lady, ordinary person. Then when she become Aswang, he doesn't know what she's doing. You can talk with her. She had an behavior that he only the Aswang know what she will do.
The New York Times published articles at the turn of the 20th century of incidences taking place on Panay Island, one describing a man being tried for cannibalism, and another which described a man being tried for killing a woman and attempting to kill her husband because they believed them to be a witch. A search for articles relating to Aswang sightings or murders of people being suspected as an Aswang turned up several results. It was clear that many Filipinos believed in this folklore, and in some cases the results were devastating. As a Westerner, it is easy for me to dismiss the sightings and suspicions in rational terms, but I wasn't brought up with this belief. I wasn't told stories from the people who I looked up to and trusted. Regardless, I was affected by the results and felt terrible for the families who'd lost loved ones. One photo deeply affected me. A young girl was sick and had died through the night. It was apparent that something had bit her, but the suspicion of the family was that an Aswang was responsible.